Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Natty News, the nattiest news show in the world. My name is Aaron the Natty, and I'm joined once again with my great co-host, Pat Pickleball. Woo! Pat, how are you doing?
I did not expect my epithet to get changed to pickleball, but I'm doing great, man. That's yeah, it's been good. I haven't played pickleball lately, but I have attempted to play tennis again. And for those of you who don't know that, before there was weightlifting, I had dreams of becoming Roger Federer.
Yeah, no, you got pretty good at tennis, especially for someone who started so late. Like, you started playing in, like, when you were, like, 16, 17. And, like, at that point, it's like, man, for tennis, that's way too late to kind of get. I mean, it's never too late, but if you want to be competitive, it kind of is. But you got pretty good for that.
Yeah, it was not bad, right? We like won a couple games in high school, and I consider that a victory because you just dragged me out to it at a lunch meeting once, and I absolutely hated the idea of playing tennis. So it was a funny journey.
Yeah, man. Well, Pat, I actually have a hard-hitting question for you. So, I was reading a little more about rice, and as dedicated listeners to Natty News know, rice is not really the most optimal way to heal an injury, and especially more modern studies are kind of showing the same thing, where it at best does really nothing, at worst can actually slow down the healing process. Um, but now I have a really tricky question for you, Pat. You know, I was reading this one study about how they were testing the rice effectiveness against ankle injuries. Now, do they just bring in healthy people and snap their ankles and then test out the rice method? Or do they like have to bring in random people with random ankle injuries? Because wouldn't you lose some consistency if you don't break the ankles the same way? Like, am I just like, have I found a hole in modern science where do we just go and we break people's ankles? Because that could be a little unethical. Or do we just do random ankles? Because that doesn't seem very scientific. So have I crushed this huge industry? Have I found the secret of what big pharma doesn't want us to know?
Man, I don't know if you crushed the industry, but I think you'd fit in greatly as a research reviewer because uh, that's good. I actually spent some time in research. I got a taste of it. When you're dealing with like injuries and researching them, yeah, you just take in people who are already injured. They might not all present the same, but they probably picked like I don't know, like a lateral ankle sprain or something. But yeah, that's like the thing with research though. I think research is important, but it's like always like weirdly flawed. You can pick ankle injury, but they're not all made the same. You can pick ankle sprain, but not all sprains are the same. And the only way to really have perfect standardization is to do something completely unethical and break everyone's ankle the whole way, which we don't do, by the way.
Yeah, you know, like I feel like there's a bit like that kind of creates a little too much randomness to kind of figure out if something is true or not. If you just let in random people come in with different levels of injuries.
That's most of this research, man. In medicine, it's like moderately standardized. When it comes like physical therapy, the standardization's really tough because we're talking about like you don't always MRI and scan everything. And then when it comes to like strength and conditioning, fitness research, holy crap, there's like 50,000 variables you can't control, which gives up that whole debate about how much can you trust research versus practice. And I think I kind of believe that the answer is somewhere between research and practice. You take the research as a good solid guideline, but then you have to work with the real life situation in front of you.
Yeah, I mean, there's no secret. Natty News, we're pretty pro science. Like, we really do believe in evidence-based training. But this is, I guess, a little bit of a fun anecdote. During my senior year of university, we do something called a capstone project, where you're paired with a professor and you kind of work on this industry project, and present it. And my professor, he was actually the CEO of the company that released DVDs, and he had a PhD in everything. And he had like a ton of research papers, like an insane amount of research papers under his name. And when we were presenting one of our project proposals, he was like, "Man, you guys rely way too much on research. Like, you realize half this stuff is BS."
Your professor was a non-research informed guy.
Well, not only was he a professor, he literally had, I think, like 100 research papers.
Yeah, if anyone's got the right to kind of make an opinion about whether it works or not, maybe he has a little bit of a say there if he's done 100 of them.
Dude, it was one of the most wild conversations I've ever had. Especially like, yeah, he was no slouch. I mean, he was the reason we had DVDs. Like his company was the ones who first got popular and brought it all around. Like, yeah, no, he was a real industry titan. So yeah, I mean, of course, like believe the science and believe all this, but yeah, it's also like I think some people take it as like biblical evidence, like you have to follow it. Where I feel like not all these papers are done perfectly, just as I've proven. I'm a little ashamed we don't break everyone's ankles evenly.
Good. I mean, there's a good point to it, man. Like, I spent 5 weeks doing research last month. I decided that I never want to do a PhD because people go through a PhD or a postdoc, and study might take you 6 to 8 months, lots of money, lots of participants, big team, all to research like one particular thing. Like the study I did was basically it was measuring one way to test calf strength versus another way to test calf strength. And from my update, I've heard it's been 7 weeks and they still haven't finished finalizing the procedure because of gaps. Um, and then you come out and you do one study, right, after 6 to 8 months. But one study is not enough to prove a point. So then some other guy has to pretty much do the same study or similar study. And so you probably want to have 5 to 10 studies that prove the same thing across different teams, different people, money and time. And then you might get one little finding that, oh, this calf pressing measure works as well as the other one. So it's a lot of work to prove some little things, but I also agree it has to be done. But it's a lot of time and money.
See, but like studies like that, where it's like 10 different teams all came to the same conclusion, then I'm like, okay, that seems like pretty much like a fact. But it's like, you have these one-off studies where it's like one of them says like, oh, eggs are like the literal worst thing you can ever eat in your body. And then another one's like, no, eggs are great. It's like, damn, it's like, how can you really find the truth? Is the earth really round? Are vaccines safe? Oops, we got canceled.
Honestly, yeah, I totally agree. It's okay. We've been doing 50 episodes. We can get a little frisky now, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's not like we care about demonetization or anything like that. Yeah, we could have been a lot more controversial than we are. Um, but anyways, enough about the research. Although I would love to hear more about what the process was, and I mean, there's no question it's a ton of work. Like people who do research, man, they deserve a lot more respect than they get. Like that is such tough work. So really I mean, again, really want to show appreciation to those who dedicate their lives for moving humans forward and progress forward. Like they're the real heroes.
Yeah, man. Like, we were just talking about how I may or may not know how to plug in an Ethernet cable, and then once upon a guy, some guy invented the whole idea of the internet and from scratch, more or less, right? Or just from like maybe like scraps of someone else's research. And like, innovations, you gotta have it. You gotta have research in the world.
For sure. Well, anyways, that was Anra's conspiracy corner. Join in next time when I prove that actually electromagnetic radiation does result in losing your gains and why you should never use a cell phone. But until then, Pat, how have you been? I know we were talking off a bit that you kind of faced an injury. How have you been feeling? How has that been holding up?
Yeah, man. So at nationals, as I said, I was in less than favorable condition and kind of messed up my shoulder a bit, and then I finally got it assessed. Shout out to Betsy, and it turns out I have what you call biceps tendinopathy. It's in the proximal part, so it's in the shoulder. It's not on my elbow joint, and it also has some what we call anterior instability. So basically, the front of my shoulder is unstable, meaning that I can't kind of like how like kids would raise their hand to ask a question. I can't really do that motion. Can't really rotate my shoulder very well. Anything that involves raising my arm is kind of not a good time right now. So um, going through rehab, and it's been tough. I kind of wanted to talk today about not how to rehab the injury, but how you train around injury. Talk about some of the emotions and lack of motivation and difficulties with it, because I don't think people talk about it much, right? Physical therapists kind of make it sound like, oh, like if you have a plan, everything's gonna be fine. But there's obviously a lot of challenges.
I mean, it's one of those things too, where like one of the things with injury recovery is like if you just do the homework, you'll be good. But the problem is no one really does the homework. I'm sure you're gonna face it a lot as a physiotherapist is once you get those little exercises, people just don't do them.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, while there's clinical guidelines of length of time and volume, those things do kind of vary too. So then, it's kind of a hard conversation to navigate when you've been told 4 weeks and it's been 4 weeks and you're not quite better yet. And a lot of frustrations, even with smaller injuries, right? It doesn't have to be an ACL tear. It can be a bicep strain. It can be a little like minor quad strain. Those things can weigh very heavily, especially if you're an athlete and you find your activities really important.
Well, something else like I just kind of realized too is like when you have an injury, it does feel like the worst thing to do is not move. Like, um, I had like this bad kind of like knee injury, and then I would just like not like I wouldn't squat as much. I wouldn't like I'd be always staying pretty conservative and light. And more recently, I started doing everything more heavy and started progressing. And like now it's like it's healed a lot better. Like now I can squat deep, start having like pretty good loads on my back, and feeling fine. So it's kind of like shocking about really the key to recovery is this moving. Like that's been I know we mentioned it on Natty News a few times, but it really feels so in a way logical, but also like for some reason like I never clicked before.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it hasn't been so long where, and it probably still happens, right? When we were growing up and you got a little injury, really weird. When I was growing up and I got injured, I never saw a physio. You always go and see the doctor, right? Who I've learned are not very well trained in especially musculoskeletal injuries. And they would usually say, rest and ice, right? Like ice it a lot. Don't do it. If it hurts at all, don't do it. And there was never any talks of like, hey, maybe like try to go for a walk. Or if your arm's injured, maybe like move your legs around and do stuff like that. So I mean, that advice I think has been kind of drilled into us to not move, to baby an injury like really, really hard. So I think, yeah, overriding that message takes time.
I always think about this one story of my grandfather. He was a farmer and he got into a bad accident with a tractor, and he actually got like he couldn't move his legs for like a few weeks. And my grandmother came and visited him at the hospital, and she brought him a pie. But she put the pie in a way where he couldn't get to it unless he walked. And she was like kind of like taunting him, being like, "If you wanted, you have to get up." And kind of that's like it's a little funny, but he actually like got on his feet to try to get the pie, and like the doctor came by and was like, "Hey, like that's great. Like we really, as soon as you can start walking, we want you to walk. Like this is the only way you can get back to normal life is by doing stuff like that." So yeah, no, it definitely is true, but it's kind of funny too. But how some other doctors would be like, "No, if you're feeling pain, you shouldn't go through it." And I mean, again, no harm against them. Being a doctor is one of the most insane things you can be, and there's no way everyone knows everything.
Definitely. Well, one last side note before we get into the useful tidbits for the day, but I'm on my rotation at Burnaby Hospital in the orthopedic unit, so that means I deal with people who have usually bad osteoarthritis, and then they go in for their like hip replacement, knee replacement, and also some hip fractures. And the current evidence, and there's really strong evidence for this bit, is that the hip and knee surgeries that are elective, we get them moving the same day of surgery. So if they had it at 9 a.m., by 3 p.m., once they kind of have sensation back, us as the physios, we go there, we get them a walker, we get them up at least standing, and often if they can, we get them walking right away. Like so that really proves a point because their hip just got nailed. They had like they had the highest level of trauma. They literally got their hip pounded with nails and stuff like that. And even for them, one of the most important things you can do is to do some gentle movement, right? We're not doing back squats, but uh, you know, I think moving is almost always better than not moving.
I mean, I was listening before. I forget where the source was, so don't quote me on this. But I was hearing that like apparently when it comes to like hip surgeries and a lot of surgeries, we are so good at them now. We are so amazing at them. And the reason why people lose mobility after surgery isn't because of the actual surgery, but it's because they don't move. Like that's the issue, isn't the surgery. We're really good at replacing bones and fixing joints and really digging in there and kind of recreating these like functions. But the issue really comes in people not doing the homework and not staying moving. That's where you got people losing mobility and kind of getting very stiff and not being able to, live as well as they'd like.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And I really think it serves as a good example, right? That for any of us who've had the advice where you hurt, minorly get an injury, and you've been told not to move it. I mean, someone's literally had their hip and knee pounded down, and we're advising them to gently and appropriately move it. Then I think a lot of us can start to take that advice a little bit, and yeah, just our bodies are more resilient than we think.
Yeah, well, I think we've mentioned that a lot in Natty News. People might be getting a little bit like, yeah, we've heard it, Pat and Animal, but let's talk about something, I guess, a little more interesting. But like, how can you stay motivating doing that? Because I think that's like the biggest thing with get injured when you get injured is just the demotivation and how like you just feel like, what's the point? Why should I go to the gym and instead of maybe benching my 315, I'm gonna go and just do like a chest machine for like 30 pounds? Like, how am I gonna be motivated to do that?
Absolutely, and I think for today's episode, I'll kind of use myself as a case study, so it's a bit of a better example. And so it's been about almost 4 weeks, and I'm not gonna lie, I've not been feeling very motivated. Like I've probably had this week was probably the first time I had some decently good workouts. I took 2 weeks where I didn't even really uh, work out at all. So I'll share some of the things I did that helped. The first thing I did that helped was to goal setting. For the past 6 months of the season, it was weightlifting. It was so easy to set a goal, right? I've got this competition and that one and that one. I'll hit bigger numbers. It's really simple. But now my shoulder is busted. I can't press. I can't snatch. I can't clean and jerk. I can't do a pull up. Still can't do a push up. So it was a lot of a struggle. Like I was feeling kind of upset about it, to be completely honest. So it was good to set some goals and kind of think about I can't really control the fact that my shoulder's busted right now. What are some things I can get better at? So focusing on aspects that can be improved rather than entirely ruminating on the fact that I have an injury. So some of the things I came up with was that my conditioning, as we all know, is garbage and horrible. So I was thinking, okay, I'll start getting a little bit more cardio. So I been shooting around the basketball with my right hand a bit more. Attempted to play tennis even though I can't really hit a forehand. And with my workouts, I requested my coach Jeremy to give me kind of a little bit more conditioning. So that was kind of good. I still hate it, but it's something that I can work hard on because I'm not injured in that aspect. The other thing was, with legs, I can't really squat right now because I can't put my shoulder in those positions. But I've been doing, as Anwar, as you love, like walking lunges, side lunges, single leg stuff, Bulgarian split squats, exercise where I can push really hard without causing myself a lot of pain or think about the injury. So, I think, yeah, that's the first thing. Just focusing on, there's always something that we can train that's relatively more pain free that we can kind of push. Because when we can still feel like we're getting better while we're injured, I think that's really motivating.
I agree with you completely. And I think one of the things that really bogs me down when I get an injury is progress, where like, you always want to improve. I think it's a very like human natural thing that you always want to get better when you do something. And then when you get injured, you kind of like at a point where you're not getting that same progress dopamine rush. So you kind of lose motivation a lot. And I kind of like find it when I'm injured, I kind of go to the gym with the mindset about like, I just like lifting weights. I just like moving stuff up and down. So let's do obviously some exercises to help me rehab, but let's do some stuff that maybe I don't really spend as much time. Like, okay, maybe my shoulder's feeling a little off. Let me train my biceps more. Let me do like 5 sets of curls. Like, let's try something else new out here and, like play around a little bit with different things just to get that time in the gym and to get that movement. I find like it's so key where you might just need to change your mindset instead of focusing on always progressing and getting better. I like this thing about like, I just like going to the gym.
And absolutely, and I think that's part of the reason why I've been introducing some sports and other things in my life, right? It's just, sometimes it might just be good to take a second out of the gym and not train 5 days a week. I've cut it down to 4 days because it's part of it is the injury process will take time. I know a lot of us competitive types will always think, oh, if we just do more rehab, it'll get better quicker, which is not always true. So the other things we like and enjoy, like doing arm curls and well, I don't like doing walking lunges, but I do them because I'm trying to get better. But things like that will always help.
Dude, lunges legitimately, I think, are the best lower body movement. Like, I know some people might not agree, but the reason you don't agree is because they're so tough. They break you down so much. They're so humbling. You can't use much weight, but man, just the amount of gains you get from walking lunges is insane.
Oh man, I agree. The amount of exercise I've found since my injury that require little weight, are insane. Like I'm doing like those. I'm doing like single leg hip thrusts, body weight, 20 reps for a maximum. Like could not do 21. Just maxing out. And it's crazy. Or right now my shoulders are injured, so I'm doing like side raises with literally 6 pounds. And also maxing out. So it's very humbling. It's when you change your perspective. I think at the end of the day, I always give advice, but I am kind of an ego lifter at heart. So it's taken time for me to humble myself and live with my body weight hip thrust and my 30-pound lunges.
Dude, you gotta show me these single leg hip thrusts. I tried doing them before during like the lockdown, and they never felt good for me. So maybe when we get some time together, we can work out and you show me how to do them more optimally. Because I don't like doing regular hip thrusts with the barbell because you just put too much weight, and I just hate taking off the weight and spending the time doing that. So I'm looking for more accessory movements that can like you don't need as much equipment to set up.
Oh, man, it's no equipment. You can do it at home and you really feel your butt. It's great. Like you can feel your glute gains coming.
Perfect. I can be one step closer to quitting my job and becoming an IG model.
Yeah, I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Nice. So there another thing that I found was really, really helpful, especially right now with an injury, is to think about before you completely kill your program and just like because it's really easy to get frustrated, and be like, do my whole program, not going to do it. Think about modifying rather than eliminating. Um, so I've had some chats recently with some people who've had some like lower body injuries or back pain, which holds them back from doing, for example, like back squats and deadlifts and things like that. So I think one thing you don't want to do is to completely eliminate doing leg workouts. If you have some back pain, to completely say, I can't squat, so I'm just gonna not do legs. Like Anwar, as you've said, like if you can modify by doing like a lunge, which is more upright, right? Then you can train your legs hard. Then I think that's like definitely a good call. With a shoulder injury like I have, I cannot do an overhead press or a chest press, but I can kind of really lightly do like a landmine press. I found this week, like that's kind of like a where you stick the bar into a kind of into a cylinder and you can push at a 45-degree angle. So I think anytime you can find something modified that you can do, then you're still being productive. You're still feeling like you're doing the program that you've been wanting to keep on, and then you can keep moving forward. And then eventually, hopefully, the injury subsides and you can kind of go back to that main movement if you're looking to get back there.
Okay. Have you also tried doing like the decline bench press just out of curiosity?
No, no, just more so because of my gym. It's like I don't know if I can even set up a decline bench, but my pressing is all kinds of horrible right now. I can literally do 3 push-ups. I'm literally like 10 years old again.
Dude, provincial champion Pat Wu, how he has fallen.
Yeah, man. I went from 146 kilogram clean and jerk to 3 push-ups. We're down bad.
It's all good. It comes back fast. Um, but no, I think that's a great point, and I do think like looking back at times when I've gotten injured, that was like the biggest mistake. When I'm like, okay, I'll just take 2 weeks off and I'll come back and I can do my normal routine again, and that's not true at all. Like really, it's like okay, let me still go to the gym and maybe my knee or maybe my back or hips hurt, so I can't squat, but I can do these other exercises. I can even just do regular like body weight squats, like just honestly anything kind of helps out more than just not doing anything. So I think you have a good mentality about just like switching up and finding movements that work in that situation.
Yeah, well, I mean, I will say I was not having a good mentality. And then I sat down and thought about it. And it's funny too because as a coach, this is something I do for my clients all the time. Most of them, a lot of them often run into some small injuries, and that's usually the first thing I do. Like if try not to stay too married to the plan per se, right? If doing bench press and it hurts them, can we do a floor press? If the floor press hurts them, can we do a lighter weight, right? And then if all that fails, always thinking about what can we change? Can we change or modify rather than just taking it out? Because it feels bad to take it out. You're kind of admitting defeat. You're kind of telling yourself that you're not able to do anything. When usually the answer is that you can do something, but it just might need a bit of a tweak.
Yeah, no, I mean, that seems like a great tip, especially for your clients for the future as well, to let them know that.
Yeah, it's really key. And that kind of takes me into, I guess, the last piece of advice I have, which is not really even advice. It's just having patience, and that's really really hard because the injury itself is going to take time to heal, depending on how bad it is, anywhere from a couple weeks to a full year, right? And I think one mistake that I've seen a lot, and I've had some conversations recently with people about it, is when they have an injury, even if it's like a small thing, like let's say like a wrist tendinopathy, right? And they're doing snatches and clean and jerks. Um, a lot of people will just kind of refuse to take the time off or reduce the load necessary to let the injury heal. We've talked a lot of Natty News about that whole inflammation, remodeling, repair kind of idea, right? Where with the right level of inflammation, you can your body can kind of get that stimulus and then respond from it and get a little stronger. But with too much inflammation, your body can't come back any stronger. And if anything, it's going to break down more. So I think a lot of people, when they have a nagging injury, they refuse to modify or eliminate anything. And in turn, a small injury that occurred can become a nagging chronic injury in that sense. Um, because they're constantly just breaking themselves down and they kind of wonder why they never heal and then they get frustrated and eventually it results in having to stop entirely when it gets really bad.
Dude, that's why I feel like you sometimes hear like professional athletes or people who like compete at sports at very high level because of that like never stopping thing is like why after like they retire they can't really play the sport either. It's like their body's kind of so broken where they've never let their injuries heal when now it's kind of like they can't get back into it.
Definitely, definitely. And I even felt it a little bit just in my season, by no means professional, but when you're in the competitive season, it's kind of hard to say, okay, I'm going to entirely not snatch for 4 weeks when I have, let's say, nationals in 4 weeks. So, that's where sort of as an athlete that it's really hard to navigate that process because you do have to push past it a little bit. But for sure, someone who is, if you're in between competitions, if you have an off season, there really is no reason not to modify and to really respect the fact that the body almost like think of it like a relationship. When you're injured, the body needs space to heal. If you never give it that space, it's never going to get better, and eventually, it's going to fully break up on you.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I mean, I also think it's like it's always good to have a mindset where you have so many decades of like doing stuff where it's okay if you like if for a few weeks you just need to maybe take it some time off, do some other exercises, like not continuously progress. Like it's not going to be really that big of a game changer for like your longevity and your whole life of like doing a sport or lifting or whatever.
Definitely, definitely. Just about being smart with it, right? And I think people always debate about lifting weights. Is lifting weights safe or bad for you? Or like is it good or bad for your body? And I think it depends. Like even me and you are totally biased towards lifting weights, but we can agree that if you do it the wrong way, it can be bad for your body. Like one example that I know is that I know a weightlifter. Yeah, he was lifting weights. He kind of hurt his wrist, right? Had a bad wrist injury that really held the person back. And then they went and maxed out the next week. So it's like, it's just, and then they wonder why they're continuing to be hurt, right? If you do things like that, then obviously you're not setting yourself up for success. But I think if you always have kind of that critical process and good coaching, or just kind of knowing when to modify something, you can reduce large injuries, which I think is our goal. We're all going to have small injuries throughout our lifting career, and but we can avoid those big ones, hopefully.
Dude, are you familiar with George Lehman?
Power lifter, 800-pound deadlift.
I think it was like closer to like over 900.
Holy crap! Yeah,
He had like a record for like a division or something. Anyways, he doesn't really lift much now. He's kind of out of the scene. But back when he was like at his peak, he would talk about that the most important thing for any type of like athlete or lifter specifically was to avoid injury as much as possible. And so he would very often do like sets of like 20 reps, just because he had like the idea of like, I just don't want to get injured. Like as long as I don't get injured, even if I don't progress as fast, I will win in the long run. And I mean, he did deadlift over 900 pounds. So I think there's maybe he was a little extreme with some of his ideas, but I do think there's some truth in that about like. One of the key things is like if you get injured, you want to try to minimize the time you're off and minimize getting injured again in the future.
Yeah, I hate to say it because it makes me sound like an old head, but like, you just have to be a little bit careful. I lean on the side of being a little bit careful with programming. Just, there's like, if you think about the idea of a threshold, like you can try to maximize your gains, but if you go to that absolute maximum threshold, you're like one extra set or one bad sleep away from injuring yourself. But if you stay a little bit below that, the idea is that you can have pretty good progression while also not having a super high risk of injury.
Dude, the most mind-blowing thing I think about, like back in the day, was when we were in like high school and training pretty hard. I used to just increase 10 pounds of my deadlift every workout, and I would only deadlift once a week. And I would start at 365 for five, and I went up all the way to 515 for five, just going up 10 pounds every week. And like looking back, I was like, dude, there's no way I could ever do that again. At least if I stay natty.
And that's those are the young testosterone gains, man. Hey, it's good to have that memory though on you. You can always tell that story.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, the hubris I had as a teenager thinking like that's like proper training and a good idea. And like now it's kind of like, yeah, that was kind of dumb to do, but I mean, I guess it did work.
To be fair though, you didn't miss any of your reps. So, I mean, fair enough.
Well, no, I mean, here's the thing. What I would do is if I missed a week, I would just go back down to the previous week's weight and then do it again and then reset. So like if I missed, let's say, for 35, I would do for 25 next week and then go do for 35 again. Like that was my idea of like deloading.
I mean, that's not that bad. I mean, for like a teenager, like lifting, honestly, I've seen worse, and you could even argue that's actually proper programming. Like at least you didn't, because a lot of people would at least take the same weight the next week. So you going down 10 pounds is pretty mature for a high schooler.
Maybe some of all those YouTube fitness videos, those bro science, it rubbed off a little bit. You know, is there anything else you wanted to mention about this injury? Because I actually have like a fun little YouTube fitness thing to mention.
Those are kind of the main bits, man. most of this is probably just me coping with my injury anyways and sharing, so go for it.
Dude, I love it, man. I mean, especially I would say you are a pretty decently competitive athlete. Like competing at the provincial and national level is it's no joke. I mean, winning provincial and competing in nationals is man, dude, I think that's pretty elite in my mind. But you know, we're all familiar with Pete Rubish, probably one of the greatest deadlift videos of all time. I'm not sure how much you follow him. I love the guy, and so I was recently watching. Been getting really into cardio. I can't believe I'm saying it, but now Pete Rubish, he's focused on trying to run a sub 7:30 mile.
It seems that every lifter eventually reaches that day. I'm just waiting for me to reach that day. One day it's gonna happen. That's crazy though.
Dude, I can't believe, yeah, you have literally one of the most. I mean, again, like, I love him now, and I'm happy he's kind of going a little easier on the gear and getting focused on health. He does seem like a fantastic guy. But it's so crazy to me that this guy who was like this like mass monster, just an animal deadlift at strength spurts, he would eat like an entire packet of Oreos as a pre-workout, and now he's like focused on being this like a cardio freak and getting his mile pace down and running like 5K and stuff. It's like, man, it really is crazy to see.
And it's I mean, Amber, you're getting there. You're kind of slowly turning into a cardio-oriented guy, so it seems like a natural transition, maybe.
Well, you know, I think for me, it's just like there's no question that cardio is like a key for longevity.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
I think for me, I care more about longevity than anything else, and so for me, it's like you gotta do your cardio. I mean, of course, you know, love lifting weights too, but you can't really always be at like 250 deadlifting like crazy weights the whole time. If you really want to do it for a while, you need to balance it out.
Oh, I 100% agree, and I think in the coming weeks, I might be reporting on a little bit of a cardio journey, or cardio for me at least. Any circuits of cardio for
Okay.
me.
You know, out of curiosity, Pat, if I was like to give you $100 and ask you to run as long as you could, how long do you think you could go? Like, do you think you could run 10K?
How long should 10K take? How long does it take you?
Like, for me, I can do it in about 50 minutes.
Okay, so take me probably hour and 15 minutes. Let's add 50% to it. Yeah, there's no way I could do that. I think I could run for like I want to say 45 minutes, maybe 55 if like there's something really important on it, and I might die after.
That's not bad though. Like, I feel like you kind of like undermine your cardio abilities.
No, Anwar, you've seen it. I don't know. I don't think I'm undermining anything at all. I
Uh,
did one of the things in my workout was 5 sets of 20 squats, picking the weight, and I shit you not, I put 30 kilograms on the bar, and I had to rest pause. I was literally getting lightheaded after like 12 of them.
Well, dude, speaking of that, I was watching this video of Tom Platch, and for those who don't know, Tom Platch is like arguably one of the greatest bodybuilding squatters of all time. The guy did like 500 pounds or 20 plus reps. He did this super narrow, like Olympic style squatting technique for bodybuilding. Like he was a freak, and he was coaching this amateur bodybuilder, and he made him do like 35 reps with one plate, and the guy was like done. Like, dude, high rep squats are no joke.
Yeah, man, I'm gonna build it up. Like my best 20 is 2 plates, so I don't know how the hell I ever did that, but hopefully I can get back there.
Dude, that's impressive. Two plates for 20. That's no joke. Like, that does actually, because that's not only strength, that is really cardio and like having that muscular endurance. Gosh
Yeah,
darn.
I remember doing it too. I was at UBC. I was working a gym in there. I had a client in about 20 minutes. So I'm like, okay, and finish the set, right? My set of 20. I was literally on the ground panting for the next 20 minutes, and my clients came in, and it might have been the worst session I've ever delivered to anybody because I was basically just thinking about throwing up the whole time.
Yeah, no kidding, man. Dude, that's a tough set.
I'll keep working on it. It's gonna be there's gonna be no more heavy lifts for me to report. It's gonna be my my running times and things like that.
Dude, I would actually love to have like a strongman event where it was just one plate in the bar and who can do the most reps.
Yeah, I hope they have a good medical team, which they do. So yeah, that's a good idea.
Like, I feel like that would be a feeling. Like, do you think someone could do 100 reps with one plate? Like, do you think that's physically possible to do 100 proper reps?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I mean, to some people, 100 like one plate's basically an air squat, and yeah, like 100 air squats probably not easy, but like you can do it.
See, I don't know, man. I'm actually very interested. I'm gonna do a little Google searching for this now.
Stay tuned for next week for the fun fact.
Yeah, this week I was challenging all of medical science, and next week I'm gonna be finding out how many squats can a human do with one plate? What's the limit? What's the squat limit potential?
I think we should try it ourselves to find out what we can do. Yeah, you're coming
Dude,
down to
I think
Vancouver.
yeah, well, coming up to Vancouver, so maybe we can do a little fun challenge. Although I don't think I could do two. I don't think I'd. I think 20-ish would be honestly my limit.
All right, well, if we get a workout in, then we will do it. We'll film it, and yeah, if we're still alive, there'll be another show next week.
All right, sounds good. Well, I think this is a good point to wrap up. Anything last you want to say, Pat?
No, that's I think that's more or less it. But again, the moral of the episode: if you're dealing with an injury, it's normal to feel frustrated. I'm pretty frustrated, but I think it's you can. It's easier to work through it if you set some good goals. There's always something to be worked on, right? If those hip fracture patients are setting good goals to just take 5 steps, everyone has a goal that's appropriate to them at the moment. So setting goals, kind of modify things rather than eliminate, so you can still kind of do what you love, and then being patient, which really sucks. But then just knowing when to take a step back entirely from the activity is so important because, and that goes back to the science where you got to give an injury some time and some space to recover. You can't just treat it as if there was nothing wrong at all. But that's all I have.
You'd love to hear it. Thank you, Pat, for the insight. And thank you to all the listeners for tuning in. And hope you guys keep making those natty gains. Natty news out.
Natty news out.